Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I hope that you're all ready for the weekend. I know that I am. It's been a busy week, but I'm fortunate to have some time today to hang out with you guys. And today's video is going to focus mostly on basketball and our memories of basketball as kids in the 80s and the 90s. And I know that some of you probably aren't the biggest sports fans, and that's okay. I'm still going to make sure that the video is full of nostalgia and memories from a simpler time, just framed around basketball this time around. So I want to tell a few stories and show a few items, and of course we'll do the cassette of the day, but then after that I want to actually go out to the basketball court and shoot around a little bit. It's a beautiful sunny day here, so I thought it might be fun to bring you all along. So if you're up for it, come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman for today's cassette of the day, where we have a VHS tape that I never really owned as a kid, but I rented it several times. And it fits in perfectly with today's video. And we have Michael Jordan, Come Fly With Me. Now there were several of these style Michael Jordan tapes back then. You know, documentary style, highlight reel videotapes. This may have been the first one, 1989 I believe. So pretty early in his career. He hadn't, gone to the finals or won any championships yet, but he was already, the player that all the kids were talking about at school. I don't want to go into too much detail about Michael Jordan because I'm going to talk about him, pretty extensively in the video regarding what he meant as a player and how he impacted us as kids in the late 80s and early 90s. But this was one that we rented from the grocery store video section. Remember when you could do that? And this is one of those tapes when you're a young sports fan, you're fine with repeated viewings. It doesn't really get old. So if you could convince your parents that you wanted to rent, regular movie, a full-length, theatrical movie, but then also throw in a Michael Jordan tape, me personally, I was good to go for the weekend in that scenario because I just loved watching all of his highlights. And keep in mind, he was doing things that other players weren't doing back then. So yeah, just a fun one. I've got a couple others from the collection, and then I've also got a DVD set that includes all of his highlight documentary videos, and that's always fun to watch as well. But for today's cassette of the day, as you'll find out with the rest of the video, Michael Jordan was my favorite player as a kid, so I had to throw this tape in for us to look at today. So as was the case with many kids in the 80s and the 90s, my first real exposure to basketball was kind of centered around Michael Jordan. And I just talked about this a little bit in the cassette of the day, but there were kids at school talking about this guy who could actually fly on the basketball court. Some of them would be trading basketball cards in the cafeteria, and Michael Jordan was always the card that everyone was looking for. And some of the really lucky kids would actually come to school wearing his sneakers, the Air Jordans. So I started catching a few games here and there on TV, and it didn't take long for me to realize why everyone was so excited about watching that guy play. I remember hoping that he would get a steal just so that he could run out and do some awesome dunk on the other end. I hoped for that to happen every single game. And in watching some of those Bulls games, probably on WGN most of the time, I got to know some of the other talent around the NBA. Players like Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway from the Orlando Magic, Shawn Kemp on the Seattle Supersonics, remember them? And Hakeem Olajuwon on the Houston Rockets. Those were just a few of my favorite players. Well, one summer, the summer of '91, hanging out with all my friends in the neighborhood, doing our usual summer stuff, riding bikes and skateboards, throwing the baseball around, trading cards, all of those fun things that we did back then. but I remember talking to my friends about the NBA Finals. And this was the first year that the Bulls were in the finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. And we would be like, hey, we gotta go. The game is starting soon. We lived in Oklahoma City at the time, so we didn't have a local team to cheer for, at least not yet. So we cheered for Michael Jordan. And I can remember one friend being like, well, hey, tonight we need the Lakers to win because we want this series to go as long as possible. That's how much we loved this stuff back then. And who could forget the feeling that you would get when that NBA on NBC theme music would start up? Or the sound of the starting lineup announcements when the arena would go dark at Bulls games. Yeah, hearing that stuff just drops me right back into a very specific place and time. And another part of the game that really takes me back, and I talked about this a few months ago when I did my football memories video, but it's the logos and the jerseys from that time. Remember when the Charlotte Hornets first joined the NBA and how popular their logo and color scheme was? There was that one starter jacket that at least one kid at everyone's school seemed to have. And the Hornets were a fun team to watch with Muggsy Bogues and Grandmama Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning. But it was the early 90s, and I think a lot of us just were drawn to the teal and the purple because that color scheme was not very common in sports at the time. And some other teams that had awesome logos and jerseys and colors back in the 80s and the 90s. My current favorite team, the Dallas Mavericks. I loved that old cowboy hat on the M logo that they had with that royal blue and Kelly green color scheme, just really classic looking. And then I think of teams like the Vancouver Grizzlies and the Toronto Raptors, who their branding was kind of like a product of the trends of the time, but it was really cool and really caught our attention as kids. And it wasn't uncommon to see kids at school, myself included, wearing those old champion replica jerseys, representing some of the teams and players that I've mentioned. Interesting fashion trend, but we loved those old jerseys. Now, part of that came from watching these athletes on TV and wanting to do what they did, right? We wanted to be like Mike. But part of it also came from all of the other places around pop culture that we were seeing basketball. I'm thinking about TV shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and some of the music videos that we were seeing on MTV at the time. And then there was that weekend show that would come on, NBA Inside Stuff with Ahmad Rashad. It was just everywhere. And one of the events that I really looked forward to every year was the All-Star Game and all of its surrounding competitions. I mean, who didn't love the slam dunk contest back then? When it had guys like Spud Webb and Sean Kemp, and when Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins were going back and forth. And what about D. Brown when he bent down to pump up his shoes, his Reebok pumps? Just so memorable. Then there were those three-point contests with Craig Hodges just raining threes one after another. These events are still cool today, but I don't think that they're ever going to match the excitement that they brought us back then. Now, it wasn't all about professional basketball and the NBA back then. I also have some really fond memories of college basketball and March Madness. Filling out tournament brackets every year to challenge your friends and your family was always a lot of fun, and that's something that we still do to this day. And being from Fayetteville, Arkansas originally, my favorite team has always been the Arkansas Razorbacks. And they had some really good, fun teams back in the late 80s and early 90s with guys like Todd Day and Lee Mayberry and Oliver Miller. And then when they actually won the championship in 94 with guys like Corliss Williamson and Scotty Thurman. Yeah, I actually had a number 30 Scotty Thurman Arkansas Razorbacks jersey that I would wear to school. And the usual suspects were always hanging around, it seemed like. Teams like Duke and Kentucky and North Carolina. And some of those teams were really fun to watch because back then, teams stayed together for several years at a time, so you really got to know the teams and their players. Sadly, those days are kind of gone when it comes to college basketball. But I want to go back to basketball memories at school for just a minute. We had intramural teams at my elementary school that were just so much fun to play on. You know, they would give you those solid colored mesh jerseys that you would pull on over your regular clothes, and just had so much fun competing against your classmates. And then specifically during NBA season, basketball became the game of choice every single day at recess. We had 2 basketball courts out on the playground at our school. One with the full-size 10-foot hoops, and then another one with shorter, I think probably 7-foot rims. And we had a lot of fun with both. But I can remember getting to 5th grade, and a lot of us were able to dunk on those 7-foot rims. And that just opened up a whole new world of fun for us with throwing alley-oops and having dunk contests. And I don't know if you guys did this, but before we could start any game, we had to go around and figure out who everyone was. And of course, there would be arguments about who got to be Michael Jordan that day. You know, hey, you were Jordan yesterday. Oh, okay, fine. I'll be Pippen today. Or I'll be Charles Barkley. Okay, fine. I'll be Clyde Drexler. And that was something that continued into our indoor games of Nerf basketball that always seemed to happen at sleepovers or just hanging out at friends' houses after school. And I loved Nerf basketball, and I still play it actually with my son to this day. We try to get in at least one game of Nerf basketball every day if we can. And my son actually has one of these soft bounce basketballs. Have you seen these? These are great for indoor use because you can dribble them and bounce them on carpet. They're essentially made out of foam. And I'll find myself dribbling this thing around my carpet sometimes while I'm on conference calls. So yeah, the Nerf stuff was always super fun, still is. I had a friend as a kid who had a laundry hamper basketball hoop. I think it was called the Dirty Dunk or something like that. It was basically a basketball hoop that had, the net was really long and extended, and you could tie it off at the bottom, and it made a laundry hamper. So you could, you know, shoot your socks from across your bedroom into the hoop. Just so fun. And honestly, I think the reason that I still like playing basketball today as an adult is that it hasn't changed. You know, when I'm outside on a nice sunny day, bouncing a ball around and shooting some hoops, I get the same feeling that I got as a kid. I'm obviously taller and a lot slower, and I can't shoot as well or jump as high, but it still takes me back. You know, it's simple. There's nothing to it. And sometimes those are the types of experiences that I seek out and make time for. So as I mentioned, I'm going to bring you all along today. Now, it won't be quite as simple as it used to be back then because I'm going to be balancing my smartphone up against my gym bag as I try to get some video footage for you guys. But I hope that you can pick up on some of the simple fun that I'm talking about with an activity that we can get out and do that hasn't changed much from the way it was back then. But before we head out and I show you all how bad I am at basketball these days, let's head back over to the Ottoman for a quick little basketball-themed show and tell. Okay guys, welcome back to the Ottoman, where I want to take you through just some fun retro or vintage basketball-related items. You know I like to do show and tell here on the channel, so that's what we're going to do. I want to start off with some video game related items. First up, we have Double Dribble for the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. Now this was a major player at all of our, friend gatherings, sleepovers, hanging out after a soccer game, waiting for your parents to pick you up, whatever the case may be. Just a fun early basketball game that I think was a little bit ahead of its time because it had these really cool cut scenes. You could get close to the hoop and press the shoot button, and sometimes you would, if you did it just right, you'd get an awesome cut scene of one of these slam dunks. So a lot of fun. And then I remember the sound it made whenever you made a three-pointer. It sounded like a bomb going off. Just really cool, fun stuff. Only 4 teams, you know, pretty archaic by today's standards, but a simple and fun basketball game for the Nintendo. And then one other video game that I actually have a physical copy of. Here we've got NBA Jam, you know, from the 90s. And this is the Genesis version. I had it on the Super Nintendo as a kid and just loved it. I remember seeing it first, of course, in the arcade. And how could you not be drawn to the big cartoony looking basketball players with the you know, the official teams and logos and names of all your favorite guys, you know, and just the over the top action, you know, with the boom shakalaka and the he's on fire. Just a fun game. Still fun to play now, honestly. So, and there were some others on the Nintendo specifically. I had a game called Jordan versus Bird that I played a lot. It wasn't that great. It did have a dunk contest in it, which was kind of cool. And then there was another game that was kind of like a beat 'em up brawler, you know, disguised as a basketball game called Arch Rivals, which was another fun one from the world of basketball video games. And I know the current day stuff is supposedly great. I haven't played a whole lot of it, honestly. I'm not as big a fan of sports simulators, which is what these have kind of become. Give me the old fun arcade cartoony style stuff any day. So I figured I couldn't do a basketball nostalgia video without talking at least a little bit about shoes and sneakers. So I've got a couple here, retro inspired basketball shoes that I want to show you. And I've actually done a full video on retro sneakers several months back. If you want to go check that out, I do a deep dive on retro sneakers and some of the ones that I have in my collection. Now this is just a Jordan 1, you know, the very first version of the Air Jordan. And this is a mid as opposed to a high top or a low top. So if you're from the sneakerhead YouTube world and you made your way over to my little pop culture nostalgia 80s and 90s channel, I'm not, you know, a sneakerhead in the fact that I can only wear the originals or the highs or you know, the OG cuts or the 85s or any of that kind of stuff. I just like what I like, and if it gives me a nostalgic vibe, I'm all for it. And this is a perfect like summer beater shoe, you know. I've talked about it before, but a lot of these retro shoes aren't the most comfortable, but this one's actually not bad. You know, the high top, the full high top version bothers my ankle a little bit. This one's a little bit more wearable. So it gives me the feeling of 1980s Michael Jordan basketball, and that's really all I'm going for. The other one is a re-release of a basketball shoe that came out in 1989 from New Balance, and that is the New Balance 550. And we've got a low top here. Another one that I consider a great, you know, just wear around town, you know, summer shoe. As you guys will see in a few minutes, I don't wear these retro sneakers when I'm actually playing basketball. I try to get, you know, a cheap version of a modern basketball shoe for that, just to give myself a little bit extra padding, a little bit extra support. But these are the types of shoes that the guys played in back in the day, and I think that's cool. So I'm always happy to have, and I always will have, at least a few pairs of retro basketball sneakers in the rotation. Now I know that we already looked at a basketball VHS tape for the cassette of the day, but this is the cassette phase after all, so I want to show just a couple of more basketball related VHS tapes. And the first one is called Double Clutch, and it's the story of the 1994 and 1995 Houston Rockets. I was living in Texas at the time, and this was a big deal because, you know, Michael Jordan had retired. He was going off to play baseball, and it kind of opened, and that was after he had won three straight championships with the Bulls, by the way. But him retiring essentially opened up the rest of the league and basically gave him a chance, in my opinion. And the team that took the most full advantage of that was the Houston Rockets, winning back-to-back titles in those 2 years where Michael Jordan was out of the league. And some great players on these teams. Like I mentioned before, Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the best bigs ever. But you also had Kenny the Jet Smith, you had Sam Cassell, Clyde Drexler was here at the time, Robert Horry, just so many great names from 90s basketball. So this is always a fun little documentary to watch. Takes you right back to that time. And look at that, I love this stuff logo. How cool is that? And these next two VHS tapes, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them because I've already done quite a bit of talking about this gentleman here. But we've got Michael Jordan's Airtime, which is another great, just iconic basketball highlight reel documentary videotape. Came a few years later after Come Fly With Me. So I think this time you get to see some of the highlights from his first championship run, which is cool. Always like watching these Michael Jordan highlight reels. Also featuring Michael Jordan, but in a much different way, you knew I had to bring in Space Jam. I mean, we are full-fledged 90s Looney Tunes craze, Michael Jordan craze. I can remember this era very well. Just a silly, fun movie. And I haven't seen the remake with LeBron. Somebody let me know if it's any good, if it's worth my time. My son might like to watch it, but at this particular time in the mid-90s, if you were going to combine Looney Tunes with basketball, you were going to have a hit movie. And that's exactly what this was. So I figured I just at least had to bring out the old Space Jam clamshell VHS for today's video. Whether you've been with this channel for a while now, or if you're brand new to the Cassette Phase, either way, you know that I'm a hat guy. I wear a hat in every video. I just like to wear hats. It's just something that I've always kind of done. I like collecting them, all the different colors, all the different logos. So I wanted to bring out a few of my favorite basketball related hats to show you today. Now I was already wearing the retro Charlotte Hornets hat, so you already saw that one, but I want to show you a few others. And you've seen these before, but like I said, I love these old logos and these colors, so wanted to share these really quick. We've got Vancouver Grizzlies on that great bright teal with a cool, interesting, unique side patch. I mentioned the Dallas Mavericks before, and I wish they would go back to this logo. The one that they've been using since like 2001 or whatever just looks so dated to me now. I'm sure that's not surprising. You guys know I prefer the retro stuff all day long. So, but I love that cowboy hat logo with the navy and the green. I just think that's a great combo. Something the Mavericks should really consider going back to. And then I wanted to bring this hat in because I didn't talk about this in the main part of the video, but I really should have, because it was a big part of my basketball fandom as a kid. And that was the 1992 Olympic team, the Dream Team. The greatest basketball team ever assembled. Am I right? I mean, you had Jordan, Bird, Magic, Ewing, Drexler, Stockton, Malone, you know, so many others that I'm forgetting right off the top of my head. But this was the first time that we got to see our NBA stars playing in the Olympics. And as we remember, they dominated everyone. I mean, they were winning games by 40, 50 points at times. I know it got a little bit closer there towards the finals, but let's be honest, it was never really in question. Now, since then, the international game has caught up. Quite frankly, I mean, some of the best players in the world now are not from the United States. So, but I just love this old hat. Takes me back to that era in 1992 when we were all going crazy over the Dream Team. Didn't they do like McDonald's cups and all kinds of like merch? You know, just everywhere. Loved it. And last but not least, for our little basketball show and tell, and you've already seen it, featured all throughout the video, but I wanted to give him his own little section, a little bit of love here for Basketball Donatello. I forgot his actual name, but this is the vintage. I know that they are re-releasing this guy along with the other sports turtles, so I'll be watching for those for sure because I love those figures. And they also did a giant size version of this, which I would love to track down one day. But what a cool old action figure. He's got the his bandana looks almost like the Rec Spec goggles that Horace Grant used to wear. Of course, he's got a red and white jersey. Of course, it's number 23. It just had to be. Got the sneakers there. I don't have the ball. I think anyone who had this figure as a kid, didn't we lose the ball pretty quickly? But yeah, I just figured I had to throw him in and talk about him a little bit during the little basketball show and tell. But that's it. So I'm going to get packed up, grab everything, and head to the car, and we'll go play some basketball. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed this little trip back in time today, even if you're not the biggest sports fan. And if you did, consider subscribing. We've got a lot more nostalgic content coming soon. And also, be sure to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax, enjoy life, and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.